Today we are going to learn the topic characteristics of particles of matter. In the previous session we have learned about matter. Anything that occupies space and has mass is called matter, and we have seen the examples of matter. Today we will discuss about what are the characteristic properties of particles of matter. So we will learn the definition of matter. Do you know what is matter? That is, matter is anything that occupies space and has mass is called matter. Now, today we will discuss about what are the characteristics of particles of matter. Now, what do you mean by particle of matter? So, the first characteristic is that matter is assumed to be made up of particles which may be atoms, molecules or ions, and the second characteristic is that the particles of matter are very small in size. So by combining these 2 points, we can say that each and every form of matter is assumed to be made up of very small particles. So we can consider this board, pen, water, air, chalk, book, or any form of matter. So all are made up of tiny particles. So human body, plants, animals, or whatever the matter, all are made up of very small units. These small units are called particles. So all the form of matter is made up of very small units. These small units are called particles. Very small units means, so we cannot see the particles or small units using our nakes or using our eyes or using microscope. So it is not possible to see the particles of matter using naked eyes or using microscope because they are so small. They are tiny particles, very small in size. So we can represent like this. See, all form of matter is made up of small particles like this. So this is not the actual size of particle. Particle means very small units, small fragments which form matter. These small fragments or small units is called particle. So we can conclude that all the forms of matter is made up of very small units. These small units or fragments are called particles. So these particles are very small in size. It means that we cannot observe the particles of matter using naked eyes or microscope. Now we can consider some examples for this. See, suppose we consider human body or animals. It is also a form of matter, so it is made up of small particles like this. So we cannot see the particles, but actually all the form of matter are made up of small units called particles. And these particles may be atoms, molecules or atoms. For example, we can consider metals. Like suppose we have a gold foil. We have a thin foil of gold metal. This gold metal, thin foil of gold metal is a form of matter. And it is made up of very small gold atoms. So it is made up of, this gold foil is made up of small particles, and these particles are atoms. So small foil of the gold is made up of millions of gold atoms like this. Now, so instead of gold, if you consider a piece of iron metal, then the piece of iron metal is made up of small iron atoms. Similarly, if you take a piece of silver metal, it is made up of millions of silver atoms. So anyway, all the forms of matter are made up of these small particles. These particles can be atoms in some of the cases like metals. And other case is that in some of the cases the particles can be molecules. That we can consider in the case of water. If you consider one drop of water, it's a drop of water drop, this water drop is made up of large number of water molecules. So we can see only water drop, but this water drop is made up of large number of particles. Which particles? Water molecules. So this small water drop is made up of millions of large number of small molecules, that is small water molecules. And one more category is that ions. In some of the cases, the particles, fundamental particles of matter can be ions. About atoms we have seen in the case of metals, and molecules in the case of compounds like water. In some of the cases, the fundamental particles are ions. We can consider ions in the case of compounds like salt. See, so if you consider salt means the common salt, or chemically we can say that sodium chloride, the salt or common salt which we are used for making food, that is salt or common salt, chemically it's sodium chloride. And if you consider this sodium chloride, a small crystal of the salt will contain large number of particles, and these particles, in this case, they are ions. In the case of water drop, we have seen the fundamental particles are called molecules. In the case of substances like salt, we can see that the fundamental particles are ions. And in this case, ions, in the crystal of salt, we can say that there are two ions. That is, there are sodium ion and also chloride ion. So there are two ions in the case of salt. So that's why chemically we call it sodium chloride. So we will learn about ion, atom, molecule, etc. in detail later on. So for now, you have to understand only this much, is that all forms of matter are made up of small fragments called particles. These particles are very small in size. We cannot see them using microscope or naked eyes. These particles can be atoms in some of the cases, or molecules, or ions. Now, the next characteristic property of particles of matter we have. Particles of matter have empty spaces between them. These empty spaces are called voids. Voids separate the particles from one another. So we can represent the particles of matter like this. Understand? So this is not the actual size or shape of the particle, and it can be, these particles can be atom, ion, or molecule. And this is the general arrangement. Very small sized particles we have, and we can see that in this arrangement between the particles there can be empty spaces like this. Can you see the empty spaces? Suppose these two are the first two particles, between them there are empty space. So between the particles there are empty spaces. This empty space is called void. So the empty spaces present between the particles of matter, these empty spaces are called voids. And we can say that voids separate the particles from one another. And in this case, if this void, the empty space, separates the particles one another. So we have learned that all forms of matter is made up of small particles, very small. They can be atoms, molecules, or ions, and between the particles there are large number of empty spaces, and these empty spaces are called voids, and these voids separate the particles from one another. Now we will see what is the proof for the statements which we have learned. We have learned that all the forms of matter are made up of very small particles, but using eyes or microscope we cannot see them. For example, this board or our human body is made up of very small particles, atoms or molecules. But we cannot see them externally. But actually they exist. So how can you prove that the matter is made up of small particles? Because using normally we cannot prove them externally because they are very small in size. So how will you prove that matter is made up of very small particles? So for that, an activity is given in the textbook. Using this activity, we can prove that all the forms of matter are made up of small particles. And for that activity, we need a compound, a substance, potassium permanganate. We need potassium permanganate. And we need 6 test tubes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 test tubes we need. And we need a substance. The name of the substance is potassium permanganate. This is potassium permanganate. Potassium permanganate is a purple colored solid. It's a substance, compound. We will take a small crystal of potassium permanganate. We don't require large amount of potassium permanganate. We will take a small crystal of potassium permanganate. And then we need 6 test tubes like this. And what we will do is that in the first test tube, we will take 5 ml water. In the first test tube, we will take 5 ml water like this. And into this water, we will put one crystal of potassium permanganate. And when you put this one crystal of potassium permanganate, you will see that the potassium permanganate starts mixing in water like this. And when you mix thoroughly, we will get a pink colored solution. Pink colored liquid we will get. This is potassium permanganate solution. So what happens in this case, we can see that we put only small crystal of potassium permanganate. This small crystal of potassium permanganate spreads into large volume of water. So that's why we will see the pink color. That is the color of potassium permanganate. So why it so happened? Because this even a small crystal of potassium permanganate is made up of large number of particles. That's why it spreads and we get a pink colored solution. Now we have 5 ml pink colored potassium permanganate solution. Now second step is that we will take a second test tube. In the second test tube, what we will do, we will take 1 ml of this solution and we have to put 1 ml of solution into the second test tube. We have made 5 ml potassium permanganate solution. From this 5 ml, we will take 1 ml using dropper, and this 1 ml potassium permanganate solution we will put in the second test tube. So 1 ml. And after that, we will put 4 ml water. 1 ml potassium permanganate, which we will take from the first test tube that we already prepared, and after that 4 ml water we will do and we will mix and we will get solution like this. Again we will see what pink color, because we have taken 1 ml potassium permanganate solution from the first test tube. And in the third step, what we will do, we will take the third test tube. In third test tube, we will take 1 ml of this solution from the second test tube, and this 1 ml we have to put in the third test tube, 1 ml. And the remaining 4 ml, we will put 4 ml water and mix well. Then same process we have to repeat. In the fourth test tube, what we have to take 1 ml of this solution which we made. We have total 5 ml because we put 4 ml water also. From this we will take 1 ml solution and put in the fourth test tube, and then 4 ml water we have to add. Again same process repeats. After making 5 ml solution, from this 1 ml we will put in the next test tube, remaining we will put 4 ml water. Then repeats in the case of 6th test tube, and we will see a gradual color change like this. That is, the pink color disappears. We can see that the pink color disappears slowly in each step. So that means this much of solution we made from a small crystal of potassium permanganate. A small crystal of potassium permanganate solid, it gives color to large volume of water. That means it is made up of large number of particles. That's why from this small crystal we make large volume of potassium permanganate solution. And from this we can prove that even a small crystal, a small substance is made up of large number of particles, and they are very small in size. Now the next property that we have learned is that they are very small in size particles, and we have seen that there can be empty space between the particles. These empty spaces are called voids, and these voids separate the particles from one another. Again, can we see the voids between the particles using eyes or microscope? No, because we cannot see the particles of matter because of small size. Then how can we see the empty spaces between them? It's not possible. So for proving this statement, so we have to consider another example. So we cannot see the empty spaces between the particles using eyes or using direct experiment. So for that we will do another activity. From that activity we can prove that there are empty spaces or voids between the particles. The activity is that we will take a beaker or glass. In this case, in this beaker or glass we will take 100 ml water. 100 ml we have to take. And next, second step, into this water. So first step is that glass we have taken, and in this glass we have put 100 ml water. We are going to prove that there are empty spaces between the particles. For that, 100 ml water in a glass or beaker, and you have to mark the water level. So where is the water level? We can see that the water level is here. So you can mark this water level on the glass or beaker. On the glass or beaker, you can put a mark. It indicates that this is the water level. Now, after putting the mark on the water level, next we have to put 20 gram sugar. We have taken 100 ml water. The water level you should mark. After marking the water level on the beaker, next we will put 20 gram sugar. 20 gram sugar we will put. And after putting 20 gram sugar, what we have to do? You have to mix that water very carefully. We have to mix it. And what will happen? The sugar will start mixing in water. It will dissolve in water. It takes time, and after that, after the whole sugar is mixed in water, what you will get? You will get a mixture of sugar and water. A mixture of sugar and water. Finally, after mixing, you will get a mixture of sugar and water like this. Now, in this sugar and water, after getting sugar and water, after the whole amount of sugar is dissolved in water, now you have to check the water level. You can see that there is no change in the water level. Initially, we have taken 100 ml of water only. In that case, you have put the water level, mark on the water level, and after dissolving, after mixing sugar, again we have to put the water level. But you will see that the water level will remain the same. There is no change in the level of water. So the water level will remain same. That means initially before putting sugar and after putting sugar, the water level remains the same. So if we put an extra substance into this water, normally what will happen after putting sugar, the water level should increase. But we can say that after mixing the whole amount of sugar, the same water level. There is no change in the water level. That means that, suppose this is water, and when you mix sugar into water, what will happen? The sugar will go into the empty spaces between the water molecules. So since water is a matter, it is made up of small particles. If there is no change in the water level, means there should be large amount of space between the water molecules. So that's why there is no change in the water level, because when you mix sugar in water, what happens? The sugar particles will occupy the empty spaces between the water, and they mixed in water, and you will get the sugar and water mixture. So that's why no change in the water level, because water molecules have large amount of empty spaces between them. So into these empty spaces, this sugar will mix and occupy the position. That's why there is no change in the water level. But normally we will think that if you put sugar, in this case, because we are putting 20 gram sugar, large amount of sugar, there should be rise in the volume of water, but there is no rise in the volume. The water level remains the same. That means the 20 gram sugar goes into the empty spaces between the particles. So that's why the water level remains the same. So from this activity we can prove that in every form of matter, between the particles there are empty spaces. These empty spaces are called voids. Now, then the next characteristic property of particles of matter is that the particles of matter attract each other. The particles of matter have forces acting between them. These forces keep the particles together. The strength of this force of attraction varies from one kind of matter to another. So we have seen that all forms of matter are made up of small particles. Between the particles there are spaces called voids. Now in this case we can see that the particles of matter attract each other. That is, there are in force of attraction, attractive forces between the particles. See, there are attractive forces between the particles of matter. That's why these particles are combined together. Or we can say that these attractive forces keep the particles together. So there are empty spaces, but still there can be force of attractive forces between the particles. As a result of this force of attraction, what happens? These particles will be held tightly together. So the particles of matter attract each other. The particles of matter have forces, attractive forces acting between them. These attractive forces keep the particles together. So that's why, because of this force of attraction, the particles of matter combine together. Now, next point. The strength of this force of attraction varies from one kind of matter to another. And when you discuss about the strength of this force of attraction, it can be different for different types of matter. So that is the strength, the force of attraction in different substances can be different. It is not same for all the substances. For example, the force of attraction between the particles of this board and the force of attraction between the particles of water is not same. It will be different. So the attractive forces between the particles of substances are not same. It will be different for different types of matter. So the strength of this force of attraction varies. It's different from one kind of matter to another. Now, how can you prove that there are empty forces between the particles? So we cannot prove it using direct observation, because same reason, the particles which are not visible, and therefore we cannot experience the force of attraction in direct observation. Then how will you prove that there are force of attraction between the particles? For that we can do another activity for the evidence. So in this case we will take two substances. We have iron, nail and chalk. Two substances we have taken. Iron, nail, we have iron nails and chalk, and we are going to beat the iron nail and the chalk with hammer. We have hammer. Using this hammer we are going to beat iron and chalk particles. So when you beat the iron using with hammer, we can see that iron is very hard and strong and it will not break. But at the same time, if you beat the chalk using hammer, we can see that the chalk will break into pieces very easily, but iron will not break when you beat the iron nail with hammer. At the same time, when you beat the chalk with hammer, chalk breaks easily. It means that we can say that the force of attraction between the particles of iron. Iron is a form of matter. It is made up of large number of particles, and the attractive forces between the particles of iron is very large, But at the same time, the attractive forces between the particles of chalk are very less compared to iron. We can consider this is the particles of iron and this is the particles of chalk. So chalk is made up of small particles and iron is also made up of small particles, and we can see that iron will not break easily. That means there should be large amount of attractive forces between the particles of iron. That's why when you beat with hammer, iron cannot break. But at the same time, when you consider chalk, the force of attraction between the chalk particle will be very less compared to that of iron. That's why when you beat, the chalk particles will break into pieces easily. It means that the force of attraction between the chalk particles are very less compared to the attractive forces between the particles of iron. So from this we can see that the attractive forces is not same for all the substances. The strength of force of attraction between the particles varies, changes from one kind of matter to another. Now, then the next point, the last characteristic property is that the particles of matter are in a state of continuous motion. We know that there are a lot of spaces present between the particles of matter. The particles of matter are never at rest and keep moving continuously in the free spaces. The particles of matter move continuously and their speed increases with increase in temperature. Now, we will discuss that all the form of matter are made up of small particles, very small, which we cannot see, and there are spaces between them. These spaces are called voids, and there is force of attraction between the particles. Now it's another point that Since there are empty spaces between the particles, see these particles can move from their position to another position, right? There are empty spaces between the particles, we have length. These particles, these empty spaces between the particles are called voids. Suppose if there are large number of voids between the particles, what they can do? They can change their position. They will move here and there in all directions. So if there are large amount of spaces, if there is void between the particles, automatically what they can do? They will start moving. They will start move here and there in all directions. They move rapidly, randomly. That is, the particles of matter are in a state of continuous motion. They are never at rest. So these particles of matter are moving continuously. Why? Because of empty spaces between them. Through these empty spaces, they can move. So when you consider water, so we will see water in a bottle, but the water molecules in that water are moving continuously. Air particles are moving continuously, but we cannot see them. So we can say that the particles of matter are never at rest. They are always moving. They are in a state of continuous motion. What's the reason? Because there are a lot of spaces present between them, and the particles of matter are never at rest and keep moving continuously in the free spaces. This is the last characteristic property. And how can we prove that? Using direct observation we cannot prove, because we cannot see the particles of any matter, and then how can you see the movement of particles? It's not possible to see, but we can prove it. So this is this is an experiment done by the scientist Robert Brown. So Robert Brown suspended pollen grains in water. So Robert Brown, scientist, he put pollen grains in water. We know that pollen grains is a form of matter, and after suspending pollen grains in water, he observed these pollen grains in water using microscope. And when he observed, the result was the pollen grains were continuously moving with water. So this is the pollen grain, and invisible moving particles of water which continuously hit the pollen grain and make it move. So because of this water molecule, he saw that the pollen grains were moving continuously, rapidly. So pollen grains are a form of matter. So it proves that the particles of matter are moving continuously. So this experiment is done by scientist Robert Brown. Now another example is that we can see that sometimes when light enters a room like this, consider this scenario, then you will see the dust particles. So the dust particles suspended in air are visible. If we can consider this case, when light enters a room like this, definitely you might have seen the dust particles which are moving in the air. That means the suspended particles, dust particles are moving. It means we can prove that the particles of matter are moving continuously. So because of these empty spaces, the particles of matter are never at rest. So these are the two evidences for that statement. Now the last one, the particles of matter move continuously and their speed increases with increase in temperature. So in every case of matter, there will be some kind of movements of particles. Whatever the form of matter, there should be some kinds of movements. And the speed of this movement can be changed with temperature. That is, the speed of this movement of particles increase with increase in temperature. So if the temperature of the substance increases, we can see that the particles of that substance move more vigorously. That is, the movement of particles increases with increase in temperature. If there is high temperature, more movement of particles. We can consider an example for this is that We do not get the smell of cold food from a distance, while we get the smell of hot food from a distance. So, we will get the smell of food. Suppose your mother is making food in the kitchen and you get the smell. And how do you get the smell? Because the smell is in the form of gas. The gas which forms from the food that reaches in air, that is the smell is due to the form of gas, and these gas particles are moving because in every case there are movement of particles, and these gas particles are mixes in air and this reach your nose, and that's why we get the smell. But we know that if you consider hot food and cold food, in which case if you get will we get the smell easily if we are at a distance from it? We will get the smell of hot food if you are at a distance, but we will not get the smell of cold food. That means if the temperature is high, that is in the case of hot food, the smell reaches very easily, means the smell is because of some gases. These gases move continuously because high temperature means the particles will move as the movement of their particle will be more, because we have seen that the speed of the movement increases with increase in temperature. High temperature, therefore more movements, so that's why you get the smell of hot food easily. But while the smell of cold food is not possible to get if you are at a distance from it, because temperature is very low, therefore there will be less movement. No movements, so no mixing in air, the gas will not reach in your nose. So from this we can prove that the speed of the movement of particles increase with increase in temperature and it decreases with a decrease in temperature. Then this is another example for the movement of particles, that when perfume bottle is opened in one corner of room, its fragrance spreads in the whole room. If you spray perfume in one corner of a room, we can see that the smell fragrance of the perfume spreads in the whole room. What happens? Because of the movement. Because the perfume particles which are in the form of gas mixes in air. So that's why you get the smell. That means there are movement of particles, movement of gas particles of perfume with air. So from all this we can prove that in every form of matter, the particles are never at rest, they are moving continuously. There will be some kinds of movements, and the speed of their movement can be increased if the temperature increases. So today we have learned about characteristics of particles of matter. We can summarize that. So whatever the forms of matter, all are made up of very small particles. They are very small in size. We cannot see them using normal microscope or using naked eyes, and there will be large empty spaces between the particles. So due to the presence of these empty particles between them, the particles can move easily. They can change their position, they move randomly. And also we can see that there will be force of attraction between the particles. This attractive forces keep the particles together. So these are the important characteristics of particles of matter. We will discuss about matter in detail in the next session. Thank you.